Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of Ukrainian time. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the South Donetsk direction. As for this direction, as you can see, there are no icons in this area, and this is very interesting and very weird. The last reports we've received from this direction were that the Russians began full-scale offensive operation in direction of the coal mine South Donbass. It's already 5 or 4 days left since the beginning of the battle, and we still haven't received anything, and this is very strange. As I understand, very soon, maybe tomorrow, the day after, we're going to receive a very big update about the Vuhledar direction, which will confirm additional progress of the armored force of Russian Federation. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Pokrovsk direction. The Russians during the previous 24 hours conducted a number of attacks with the purpose to establish complete control over the territory between the villages of Georgievka, Maximilianovka and Krasnogorovka itself. In this video, for example, we can see the process when the Russians were preparing the territory before the beginning of the full-scale offensive operation. We have a Russian drone that was attacking the edge Ukrainian positions. As you can see, according to the map, according to the configuration, this territory considered as contested area, but according to the geolocation, most likely this territory is under complete Ukrainian control. And later, the Ukrainian sources published the video how the Russians were attacking this territory using 8 vehicles. The Ukrainians shown how they were trying to repel Russian attack, how they were FPV droning the Russians, how they were bombing and attacking them. The Russians most likely suffered losses, and according to the Ukrainians, they lost up to 5 vehicles that were involved in that attack. Anyway, despite the fact that the Russians lost some vehicles, they managed to improve their positions in the northwestern part of Krasnogorovka, at least according to different mappers. The pro-Ukrainian mappers reported additional progress of the armored force of Russian Federation, and currently, according to pro-Ukrainian mappers, there are no more positions, positions of the armored force of Ukraine inside of the city. Everything either is already captured, was already captured by the Russians, or in the gray zone. So as for our mappers, there are still Ukrainian positions, and most likely there are clearing operations right now, and probably by the beginning of the next day everything will be captured by the Russians. So we are talking about this part of Krasnogorovka. As for this northwestern part, we still haven't received anything that can confirm this, but probably going to receive some in the very near future. Furthermore, the pro-Ukrainian mappers confirmed that Ukrainians left their positions inside of Novohrodivka, and Ukrainians slowly, step by step, but moving inside of the fields between Galicinovka, Karlovka and Krasnogorovka itself, trying to get as close as possible to the main supply roads. And when time comes, the Ukrainians want to be sure that they are very close to the main supply and evacuation roads to do this as fast as possible. The Russians, as you can see, are tightening the news, and currently the distance between possible Russian positions in the north-southern part of Zhelannoye Pershe and possible Russian positions in the northwestern part of Krasnogorovka is already 6 kilometers, which is nothing, and it's very difficult, already very difficult, for the Ukrainians to evacuate their personal and armored vehicles from this artillery pocket, from this encirclement. Furthermore, during the previous night, we got at least several reports from different pro-Ukrainian sources about very difficult situation for the 24th Mechanized Brigade of the Armored Forces of Ukraine in the Ukrainsk direction. First, we got report from very reliable pro-Ukrainian sources that several soldiers, several probably platoons of the armored forces of Ukraine were encircled between the city of Ukraine's Zhelannoye Pershe, Galicinovka, and later we got additional update from pro-Russian mappers, and according to information we have, the Ukrainians were encircled somewhere here. So this is the area where several, probably tens of Ukrainians were encircled, and according to information we have, they were trying to break through to the Ukrainian positions in the city of Gernyak. So we don't have any geolocation that can confirm this, but anyway, very interesting reports. As for the cities of Ukrainsk and Gernyak itself, we haven't received anything during the previous night. The last report we received from this direction is that the Russians were attacking both cities. The Ukrainians was attacked, the city of Ukrainsk was attacked from the south, from the east and from the north, and the city of Gernyak was attacked just from the north. Now let's move further away to the city of Selydove. We have some changes on the ground in Russian favor. The Ukrainian sources published the video how they were FPV droning the Russian forces along this tree line. This tree line was geolocated once again. The Ukrainians, as you can see, were using the TOS flamethrower drone. Currently, this is something new that Ukrainians began using in the special military operation. Soon the Russians are going to use the same type of drone, but anyway, as for this stage, this is something unexpected, something interesting, and something new. The Ukrainians were FPV droning this tree line, and based on this video, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor. As for Mikhailovka Selydove itself, we start receiving very interesting reports. We got another video in the northern part of the village, and this Mikhailovka, this video confirmed the Ukrainian FPV drone attack on Russian positions, which confirms the edge Russian positions in the village of Mikhailovka. And we have report from very reliable pro-Russian sources. The Russians reported that due to the redeployment of significant number of reinforcements and reserves, the Russians were forced to fall back, to abandon their positions in the south and in the central part of Selydove towards the village of Mikhailovka and towards the landfills and the terracons that located in the northeastern part of this agglomeration. As for the terracon of Russia, this one we have no doubts that this territory is under complete Russian control, but as for the landfill of Karachenka, there are some doubts whether the Russians managed to establish control over this territory or not, because we still haven't received even a single photo, haven't received even a single video that confirm Russian control over the territory. Furthermore, we still haven't received even a single report that the Russians established control over Marinovka, and this is very important because without control over Marinovka, there is no way how to control the landfill of Karachenka. Now let's talk about Marinovka in details, because during the previous 24 hours we got additional videos from around of this small village. In this video we can see FPV drone attack of the armored force of Ukraine of the 68th Jaeger Brigade on Russian positions in the vicinity and between the stronghold that located to the east of Marinovka. And in this video we can see another FPV drone attack on Russian vehicle also to the east, to the southeast of Marinovka. So now it's good to increase the numbers of days, at least from the beginning of September. If we take a look at the number of geolocations and the location of geolocations, we see that Ukrainians were FPV droning the Russians in the vicinity of cemetery. There are 2 geolocations. The Ukrainians were FPV droning the Russians to the north of Marinovka, and there are 3 FPV drone attacks to the east. So everything is around Marinovka, but nothing from inside. And these geolocations, the number of geolocations and their positions confirms that most likely the village of Marinovka wasn't captured by the Russians during the first stage of the Pokrovsk offensive operation. Most likely the village of Marinovka is under complete Ukraine control, and if we receive at least 1 geolocation or 1 video, we will return this territory back under Ukraine control. And if Ukrainians control the village of Marinovka, most likely the Ukrainians control the landfill of Karachenka. And this is very important. Probably this is the most important conclusion that we can make right now, because if Ukrainians save their presence on the landfill of Karachenka, this is completely different situation in the battle for the Pokrovsk direction and for Selydove itself, because without this landfill for the Russians it's going to be very difficult to move further in the western direction. Basically it will be impossible, or it will be connected with a significant number of losses from their side. So let's wait for some updates from this territory. I believe that very soon we're going to receive some clarifications from the ground, and then we will change the map in someone's favor. Now let's move to the northern flank of Novohrodivka. Today some pro-Russian sources reported that the Russians began offensive operation in direction of Lysovka and Sukhoy Yar, and according to pro-Russian sources the Russians managed to answer both villages. Currently we can confirm this information. We don't have any geolocation. This information wasn't confirmed either by any of the mappers, so that's why we're just discussing this update without any changes on the ground. So that something like this currently is happening in the Russian segment of Telegram and internet. Now let's talk about this flank, about the area between the Mirnograd and Novohrodivka itself. As you can see, this is the biggest part of the front line that is located in contested area. We still haven't received even a single report, single video or picture that confirm control either of the Russians or of the Ukrainians. But today we got a very important video from the northern part of Chasiv Yar. Let's take a look at this video. And in this video we can see the movement of Ukrainian robot. So this is Ukrainian robot. I don't know what kind of model, maybe C3PO or something like this, or R2D2. I don't know, but the Ukrainians are saying that this drone is with a machine gun, and the Ukrainians sent the drone in the village and to attack the Russian positions, and when the drone was empty, the Ukrainians moved back. So the drone was located exactly in this point, and the Ukrainian drone robot was moving from the south in the northern direction, which confirms that most likely everything to the north of Chasiv Yar, we are talking about the village of Krasny Yar and the village of Mykolaievka, is under complete Ukraine control. So summarizing everything for better understanding of the situation, most likely everything here is under complete Ukraine control, and the Russians, maybe during the first stage of Russian offensive, they entered this territory, but later they were forced to fall back to the village of Chasiv Yar. So very interesting video. For now, we are not changing the map because we don't know for sure when exactly this episode took place with the Ukrainian robot. Maybe today. If today, then we need to color, but if this episode took place, let's say in the end of August, this might be just the first let's say days of clashes of Russian offensive. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Chasiv Yar direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. And as we discussed in the previous video, most likely the Russians managed to establish complete control over the highest point to the north of Chasiv Yar, over this hill. So this is the highest point, and from this territory the Russians are going, or maybe already started, offensive operation in the southern direction. The Russians were bombing Chasiv Yar. The Russians attacked the territory with FABs, with missiles. So everything, the process is ongoing. As you can see, the Russians are bombing the territory, trying to destroy the Ukrainian positions, the Ukrainian fortifications and strongholds. For now, without any geolocation that can confirm the operation on the ground, but once again, we believe that this territory to the west of the village by the name of Kalinovka was already captured by the Russians, and now the Russians are preparing themselves before the beginning of the full-scale assault operation in the southern direction, with the purpose to capture the industrial zone and this residential part of the Chasiv Yar. Now let's move further. Siversk is under very heavy fire. Today we got additional batch of videos of how the Russians were bombing and attacking the Siversk citadel. There are still no changes on the ground. The Russians are just bombing the Ukrainian positions, preparing themselves before the beginning of the full-scale offensive operation on the ground. When exactly this operation is going to start, nobody knows. As for the southern Kupiansk direction, we have some changes on the ground. According to neutral mappers, the Russians during the previous 24 hours managed to improve their positions and to capture additional true lines, fillets, and the fortifications, and to get as very close, close possible to the village of Novohrodivka. As for the northern Kupiansk direction, we haven't received almost anything, just one geolocation of how the Russians were bombing the city of Glushkovka, and this is the second day in a row when we continue receiving updates exactly from this angle, from these positions. And the most important, we have fire anomalies to the south. In this photo, we can see two huge fire anomalies right in front of the Russian village of Selydove that was captured by the Russians a few days ago. And there's the first area of fire anomalies. This is the first area of very huge fire anomaly. And this is the second area of very huge fire anomaly. And these fire anomalies confirms that most likely the Russians also do have some plans to continue moving from Selydove further in the western direction, with the purpose to establish complete control over something like this. If the Russians are able to take under control these fields and to get as close as possible to the river of Oskol from this direction as well, this can lead to significant problems for the Ukrainians. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kursk direction. The Ukrainian sources published the video of how they were evacuating the vehicles that were destroyed in these areas during the first days of clashes as a result of Iskander strike. And We have some changes on the ground. If you remember, just yesterday we talked that the Russians took under control the village of Chernipovka, and by that attack, by that control, the Russians cut the main supply road between Ruskaya Porечная and Cherkasskaya Porечная. And today we got additional update from neutral mapper that the Russians managed to improve their positions further, and that the Russians have already established control over 50 or 30% of the village, and they're moving further. So if the Russians are able to move further, closer to the village of Pravda, this can lead to cuts of this western pincer, eastern pincer, which can lead to complete collapse of defense of the armored forces of Ukraine, and can lead to encirclement of several hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers that are currently located in this area, which will also lead the situation, the Russians, to unblock the Russian garrison that currently locked in the city of Male Loknya and around. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions, and once again more and more sources report that confirms that Ukrainians lost the initiative completely. Furthermore, during the previous nights, during the previous days, the Russians conducted several number of Iskander strikes all over the line of combat contact, and for example in Mykolaiivka the Russians destroyed a hotel, and according to information we have, this hotel was occupied by the foreign soldiers, foreign volunteers and mercenaries, and now we understand that the building was completely destroyed. Most likely nobody managed to survive after such strike. Furthermore, we have additional updates of Iskander strike that's been taking place since the 2nd till the 7th of September. In this photo we can see the satellite difference in this building. As a result of strike, the entire hangar was destroyed, a very big hole on the roof of the building. And we have additional details about the Russian attacks in Lvov. According to information we have, during the previous few days the Russians attacked the airfield in Lvov, and they managed to destroy the airfield infrastructure, and most likely, according to the Russian analytic experts, the Russians managed to destroy few or several Su-24 or MiG-29. I'll remind you that there were very heavy explosions. There were 3 strikes in this area, and the first, when the strikes just began, the sources reported that the Russians were bombing the railways, but later we got details today, that the Russians were attacking the airfield infrastructure. Maybe the Ukrainians were planning to redeploy some F-16s, but as I understand, the infrastructure was pretty damaged. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.